so in addition to loving planners, all things planners, layouts, goal setting, goal tracking, I'm also quite obsessed with personality systems and personality typing. I've been a long time Myers-Briggs fan and have recently gone down the human design rabbit hole. I'm actually a trained reader, but I wanted to do a video series on what can human design tell us about our own productivity. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what the heck is human design very briefly. I'm going to define productivity, how I'm looking at productivity in the context of this conversation, and then what does human design tell us about our own productivity if we kind of look at it that way. So stick around and let me know if you have any questions at the end of this video. All right, so I need to make a really quick disclaimer before I get started. So we are all unique beings. We are on this individual journey. We all have different life experiences that shape us, that make us the way that we are. So I want to be really clear that when I am talking about human design and productivity or any other topic, that our complexities defy these simple categorizations and assumptions, okay? That's number one. Number two, no one tool, so whether you're talking about Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, human design is going to define us in every aspect of our life. So, but I do believe and have always felt that they can provide insights that maybe can lead to some positive shifts for us. And no one tool should ever make you feel like you're being put in a box. So if you're looking at a system and you've taken that test and it's calling you something and you feel like you've been put into this box, just know that you are not in a box. Like, you are more divine and more expanded than that. Lastly, we should never give our power away to these tools or systems. Always trust your intuition. Take the insights that they give, including human design, have a play with it. Trust your intuition, trust your gut, know if it's accurate for you. And if it doesn't work for you, if the advice doesn't work for you or the insight doesn't work for you, just discard it. Okay, so what is human design anyway? I'm going to give a brief description about human design. If you would like to go down the rabbit hole, please do. There's tons of information out there about it. But basically, human design is a system that was created in 1992 by a guy named Alan Robert Krakauer, and it brings together different systems. So it brings in the Chinese I Ching, Western astrology, the chakra system, the Kabbalistic tree of life, and quantum physics. And what happens is when you give your birth information to a human design reader, or you enter it yourself in a calculator that you can find online, and I'll actually put that link in the description of this video. When you put your birth date, your time and location, you put it in and it will give you what is called a bodygraph chart. This bodygraph chart will tell you what your energy type is, and it also has a ton of information in it. But the main thing for the purposes of at least this video and this introduction is the idea is when we understand what our human design is and the areas that are lit up in our chart, that tells us how we can live more in flow and lean in and sync with our true nature. The idea is that if we know our energy type and how our energy type is engaging energy with the universe and the external world, and we can kind of lean into that, it will increase flow in our lives. It will bring the things to us that we want. And so I like to say that human design is kind of like Myers-Briggs. They're not, let me be really clear, they're not the same at all. Myers-Briggs is obviously more of a personality traits, whereas human design is more, yes, there's personality aspects that you can learn about yourself. There's talents and gifts that are in that chart. There's so much that is in the chart, and the information you get from human design is definitely more practical that you can execute on and just experiment with. Whereas for me, although I'm a huge fan of Myers-Briggs, it's really just more of a description of what my personality type is like, and not really advice at how I should engage with the world. And human design is really designed more as an experiment to say, here is what your energy is like, here are where your innate talents and gifts are, and if you can lean into these things and embrace these things, you're going to increase the flow. So again, human design is just an experiment. It's something to try on. So, it's one of those things we just have a play with it. All right, so I would like to define how I'm using the term productivity for the purposes of this conversation. So on the one hand, the world tells us what productivity looks like. What does a productive person do, or what do they look like? So they are great at time management. Maybe they're super organized and they're efficient and they're able to focus and they're very consistent. And you have all these terms. If you Google productivity, all these terms around productivity come up that are like super structured, super controlled, and just not all of us are designed to work or operate that way. So I would like to offer a new perspective through the lens of human design, that when we look at our body graph chart, our unique chart that's specific to us, it will shed some light on the gifts and talents that we have that we can really lean into, that will open up that flow and start moving that energy and helping us get the things we want in our life, helping us be more productive. But really understanding our how of how we get something done may not look consistent, for example, or it may not look like a detailed plan. So that's where I want to get to. And so productivity in this conversation really kind of has it's like two sides of the same coin. You have the super structured part and you have the flow part. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that as in future videos. Okay, so what can human design tell us about our productivity? What insights can it give us? Before I get into those specifics, I want you to think about a continuum. So when you think about the extroversion, like being an extrovert, and you think about being an introvert, one of the things that maybe you identify as introvert, then that's how I identify actually. And you tell somebody, hey, yeah, I'm an introvert, and they look at you like you have two heads, and they're like, why are you saying you're an introvert? You're just so, happy-go-lucky, or you act very different when you're, around our group of friends. And the reason, so we all know we live on this continuum. So even though maybe I identify as an extra introvert, it doesn't mean that I don't have extrovert tendencies, or that I don't, come out and be a little more extroverted depending on the environment and the people I am around. So when we're talking about human design, when we're talking about, for example, being able to focus, or we're talking about being organized, or we're talking about discipline and consistency, think about those things on a continuum. And so when you pull your body graph chart, and maybe it says that consistency is not a tool that's always accessible to you, which is what is in my chart, that doesn't mean you're never consistent. It just means that on that continuum of inconsistency to consistency, you might be, or I might be, inconsistent most of the time. And the idea is to really start shedding that story that we tell ourselves is, I have to be more consistent. I have to be more consistent. If consistency is not in my chart, I'm going to let it go and just own the fact that I'm not consistent all the time, and that's fantastic. It means I can still get things done. So I want us to think about things when you're pulling your chart and you're looking at your chart from a human design perspective. We're looking at continuums. It doesn't mean you are never disciplined if for maybe that doesn't come up in your chart as something that's an energetic that's consistently available to you. It doesn't mean you're never that. It just means that maybe this is a place to look at where you can really kind of remove that story of I have to be a specific way and just kind of live and flow with who you are. So getting into what human design can tell us about productivity. So, referencing my example, it can tell us where should we let go based on our chart. Where should we let go of what the world says productive should look like, what our process should look like, and because we're all designed differently. And then how you get your stuff done is going to look a lot different based on your design and your talents and gifts than it's going to look for somebody else. So when we're looking at other people and how they became successful, for example, it's not going to look the same for all of us. And our chart might be able to shed some light or some insights on where our differences lie. The other thing is that the chart can show you your energetic relationship to a lot of things. I've only listed a few things here, but basically your relationship to strategy and planning, your relationship to discipline, focus, your relationship to motivation and consistency. And when we understand those things and we just kind of lean into them, embrace them, accept them, it can really open up flow in our life. And I would even put like optimal environment here. When we're feeling in flows, like sometimes we don't realize the environment that we're in may not be conducive to us being our most productive selves. And so human design can actually shed some light on what's our optimal environment. And, so when you look at your chart, there's just all of this goodness in it and all of these insights that can be gained from it. And, this list that I have here is actually the tip of the iceberg. There's like so much more in a chart, but this is just the place to get us started for the conversation. So this is going to be the first video in a series that I do about, sharing aspects of a chart and what it might mean, what insights it might give you for, what around your own productivity and maybe how your process looks and the things you should be leaning into and maybe the things that you should be saying, that's just not me and I'm going to try this a different way. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in the comments.